Alright, so in the last video we finished creating our first solution, and there's some code in there, albeit very boring code that doesn't do anything, but let's pretend that we are at school and we just wrote some code and we want to save this and we want it to be accessible anywhere. So we could zip it up and put it on a flash drive, but even that is kind of not a very ideal way of doing it because we could lose the flash drive, it could get corrupted, then we have to start all over again. A much better way to do this would be to use what we call source control. So source control software is software that allows you to check in your code and push it to an online repository where other people can access it. They can create copies of it. They can modify their own copies of it to kind of experiment with it. They can contribute to it. It's pretty much like the all access way of sharing your code online and keeping it safe. So I think the most popular technology for doing this right now is called Git. That's Git. And this was a technology invented by Linus Torvalds, who is the inventor of the Linux operating system. And GitHub, github.com, is a website that allows you to really easily use Git. So I guess that's the simplest way I can put it. Is Git is the technology, is the underlying technology, and GitHub is a website that allows you pretty easy access and a nice user interface to use the Git source control system. It's not just a website. It's also you can also download this client to synchronize your code, to get your code, to modify your code. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do now. The first thing you want to do is create a GitHub account. As you'll notice that I already have one, but I think up here, if I do sign out, and if you're not signed in, if I did like an incognito window, so if you go to github.com, you'll see this, and you'll have to click sign up and go through all that to create a GitHub account. And once you have one, then you will be able to store all of your code and share it with people and have them look at it and allow them to contribute to it and make it always safe. And also, you'll have like a little vanity URL. So like github.com/Donnie Santos is my particular account. And I have these repositories here. Each repository is basically a folder full of code that you have pushed online, and it's available for other people to either look at or edit or copy, clone, modify, and you can control all of that from here. So the question is, how do I get started? How do I do it? The first step, like I just showed you, is just create your own account. The second step is to say, well, okay, now I've got my own account, but how do I get this folder onto my GitHub account? And the answer is you want to download GitHub for Windows, which I purposely deleted so that I could reinstall it for you. Download GitHub for Windows. And unlike Visual Studio, this is going to be a really fast download. Download GitHub Desktop Windows 7 or later. That sounds good. Run it. This should be a pretty easy install. 102 megabytes, no problem. So GitHub for Windows is going to allow me to basically, once I've created my GitHub account, this program is going to allow me to take this code and shoot it up to the server so that I can delete it off my computer and it'll still be safe and sound for myself to get, for my teacher to get, for my friends to get, and if I want, for other people to be able to go in and edit it and contribute to it. So it's really the absolute best way of taking care of all your code. So forget about the flash drive nonsense. You really want to be using GitHub for everything. Once you start using it, you'll never use anything else. It's really nice. So 13, 12, 11, 9. Alright, so that should be it. Should be a pretty quick install. Maybe. Alright, so we don't want a tutorial. Come over here and remove. Their tutorial's not as good as mine. So here you are. The first thing you need to do is, let's see, what is going on over here? I will say, well, this thing seems to be pulsating over here, begging me to click on it, so let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create my first repository. And like you guys, I'm actually going to, I think I did this wrong in the past. I always had like a C# repository, as you might have just seen, but I think most of you guys are going to want to create a repository just for this class, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to call it IT1025. Can I put a space in there? IT-1025? That's okay, that looks fine. So it's going to create a folder on my, oh, I don't want it in documents, I want it on my desktop. So I'm going to browse to the desktop. So on my desktop, it's going to create a folder called IT1025, and it's also going to create a repository. And the important thing to understand is when you create a repository, you're not only going to have the code on your computer, it's also going to exist on the GitHub servers. So let's go ahead and create this repository. So good, now I have IT1025. And notice there's a folder over here. And that folder has a couple of files in there. I don't really think we need those. I'm just going to delete them. Bing. So now I have this empty folder. And believe it or not, this folder, now that I created it as a repository, is associated with an online repository. What that means is this is kind of like a magic folder, whereas anything I drop in here, if I synchronize GitHub after I drop anything into this folder, everything in the folder will be automatically pushed as a mirror copy to the server. So, hey, what do you know? I have this, my first solution, and that's exactly what I wanted to back up. I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in my magic folder. So now, in here, inside of my, this is my repository folder. Inside of the repository folder, I dropped all of my code. So now I come back to GitHub, and I see up here there's 22 uncommitted changes. So it noticed that I dropped all that stuff inside of the magic folder. So I'm going to click on that. And hey, look at that. It's showing all the code that I added. Summary, doesn't matter. Type in anything. Added my first solution. You can just type blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. So now, this is probably the most important thing to understand. The repository, there's two repositories actually. There's a local repository and a remote repository. The local repository is what keeps track of this folder and all of the changes that you've made to it since you last synced up. The remote repository is out there on GitHub servers. So the two words that you need to remember here are commit and push. Or synchronize, push or synchronize. Commit means it's only committing to the local repository. So once I click commit, notice it happened really fast because everything happened locally. So it did create the commit, added my first solution. So by committing, everything is done here. But what is not done is I haven't pushed to the remote repository. So there's this publish folder. Alright, so publish button. So it's usually called push, but I guess they call it publish. Oh, maybe it's because this is the first time that I've ever used this repository before. After I do this, we'll try to do we'll add another file and see if the verbiage changes here. So I've committed locally, but now I'm going to actually publish. So I'll click that. Description, again, doesn't matter. Oh, this is the description of the entire repository. So this is my IT1025 programming logic. So now I'm describing the actual repository that I'm creating for the first time on GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that. We go to the website, We go to github.com/me, and what do you know, I have a new repository right there. And if I click on it, I can see that my first solution is there. Inside of there, my first project is there. Inside of there, my code file is there, and I can even look at my code online. So that was how I created the repository. And now let's say, now I want something else there. So I come back and I say, now I have a new file. I'm just going to create a new text file. I'm going to say, I'm just calling it blah.txt. I'm going to say blah, blah, blah. So this is something this is something I did in class. You know, I want it to be online on GitHub, safe and sound, so that I can get it from anywhere. What do? I drop it in the old folder, the magic folder. Now my solution is there and my text file is there. So GitHub for Windows should have noticed that there's some uncommitted changes. Come back here, notice one uncommitted change. Click on that. It shows blah.txt. I write in any old summary. I added blah commit. That only commits locally. Then I come up here and now, see, instead of publish, it said publish because that was the first time I had ever created the repository. Now it says sync. Syncing means it's actually sending the committed local changes to the server. So syncing, 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 and now it's done. So now if I go back to the website yet again, and I look in my repository, now all of a sudden it has my file, it has the comments, and it says blah, blah, blah. So that is basically how you use GitHub to synchronize your files. So I've only shown you so far how to send stuff to the server. What about if you want to download it? Well, that's actually even easier. So if you click on the root here, like you click on Donnie Santos so that you can see all the repositories, you choose the repository that you want, like that. And there's a handy dandy little button here called download zip. And if you click that, it will download the entire repository in a zip file. Right? And then you can just take that, extract it, and you will have all of the stuff that's in the repository. That's all there is to it. And the beautiful thing about this is, let's say that this is your assignment. Let's say that I asked you to turn in the assignment, and your assignment is really, it starts there. You could just come up here and grab that link, and when you go to Blackboard to submit it, you can really just submit that. So I will take that link and I will go to your GitHub account and I will go to your repository for the class and I will go to the folder for your assignment. So you really don't need to submit anything except a link. So I'm gonna strongly suggest, and by strongly suggest I mean kind of demand, that you use GitHub for turning in your assignments. It'll make it so much easier for you and me. You'll never lose your code. We'll be able to keep track of all the changes you've made. It'll be really much better than anything else we can do. So I think this is, I have another video on YouTube that's much quicker than this on how to use GitHub, and you can look at that too, just in case they're different. But I think this one is a little more in depth, because in the other one I just showed really quickly how to do a sync, but in this one I actually created a repository. I did notice one thing that happened was when I started GitHub, it didn't ask me to log in. It must have just remembered my username. So when you create your GitHub account and password, it will probably ask you to input the account name and the password when you first run GitHub for Windows. So keep that in mind, but that really shouldn't be too much of a problem. So be aware that this is really kind of how you should be doing things. Let's show you one more thing. Let's say that I delete this folder altogether, and I'm going to empty my recycling bin just because obsessive compulsive. If I do that, notice over here in GitHub for Windows it says, hey, this repository is supposed to be linked to a folder on your desktop, and for the life of me I can't find a folder called IT1025 on your desktop. Oh, I just noticed I named it IT1025 instead of 1050. I gotta go back and change that. IT1050. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Oh, that's kind of a bug. It's a bug in GitHub for Windows there. Hopefully they'll see that and fix it. So now we get the pulsating plus again. I'm going to click on that. And now that the my repository already exists, I'm not going to create a repository. This is important. Thank God that I did this, because this is actually really important. My repository already exists at this point, so I don't want to create it. I want to clone it. So notice when I click clone, it shows all of my repositories. It says, oh, which one do you want to clone? Well, that's the one I want to clone. So I say clone it, tell it where to put it on the desktop. Boom, there it is. And magically, I got all my stuff back. So just to recap here, I've shown you how to create a local repository, add things to it, and then publish it to your online repository remotely. And then we've shown how to add more things to that repository, commit them, and synchronize up with the existing remote repository. And then we also moved on to cloning an existing repository, adding things to it, committing those changes, and synchronizing those changes to the online repository. So those skills really are the only things you're going to need to know to be able to use GitHub effectively. In addition to that, we've shown how to go to the GitHub website and just pull down the changes on anybody else's code. So, for example, one more time, example. So look, I'm following 13 people, and these are some of my students from my last class. Oh, there's Courtney. Let's see if she has any code. So I could go here to her 1810 class, and I could download a zip file. And that zip file right there is all of Courtney's code from that Visual Basic class. And I'm really not going to open up that code and show it to you because, well, never mind. Okay, so that's pretty much everything. And I think at this point you should be able to feel comfortable using GitHub for Windows. I know there'll be a couple of questions about it, and I'll field those as they come in class. But for the most part, I think the hardest part is going to be just initially creating your GitHub account, publishing your repository. Don't forget to name it IT1050, not IT1025. And from that point, it'll always be, you go to a computer, you have GitHub for Windows, you clone the repository, you add things to the magic folder, and then you commit those changes, and then you synchronize, and then everything will be up to date online. And then you'll be able to send me a nice, clean little link as your assignment submission. And that's it. So I think that kind of concludes the section of how to just get started with the tools that we're going to be using, and I'll just add one more video in this playlist as to how to actually run the program, and the very basics of what you need to do to understand running the program in Visual Studio and then submitting it as your assignment.